third world or second world countries where like the economy is now growing, or there's enough to do as an expat in the country for it to be cheap enough to live there. They're looking for women with more conservative ideals.
It's very different because it's determined on a number of factors, like the culture of the place that you're staying in, because like the culture shock for like my nieces and nephews living in a third world country with a predominantly Islamic rule.
That go and seek people from other countries, they genuinely do like the other people.
Well, those are like the people that are real. Those are the men that are especially vulnerable, like the ones who fall in love with strippers and they're like, oh yeah, she loves me, that's why I come here every day and spend money. It's the exact same thing. It's transactional.
Don't look at me, Josh. I worked in a strip club, and
he was a bouncer and a manager.
I did a lot of things, and that's it. I'm gonna leave it like that.
He had a couple crazy. Can you take me on? Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Only Lawsuits podcast. And man, we are now almost 20 episodes in, guys.
20 episodes.
20 episodes. Kind of crazy.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Time definitely flies when we're having fun.
I haven't been having fun. I've been working my goddamn ass off. I literally, in the past 2 weeks, I don't think I've worked this hard my entire career.
We have a lot of cases on the docket that we're trying to power through with the end of the year on the horizon. But we were able to have a little bit of fun. So we were talking about that just before the podcast started. Mike and I went to go see Three Doors Down and Creed in concert.
Yeah, brother.
Can you take me higher?
Yeah, we learned a lot that night. Creed, did you know Scott Stapp, right?
Scott Stapp.
He is from Orlando.
Did not know that.
Born and raised in Orlando, man.
But remember, we were talking to my aunt that week, right? And she was saying how she knew Scott Stapp, and she did maybe she was just telling it to me. She was saying like she was his dad's dentist or something here, and I was like, "You're full of shit." My aunt makes up all sorts of shit, so I thought she was full of shit. But I think she might have actually known him now.
It might have actually been true.
Do you listen to Creed, Farah?
I have listened to Creed. I'm not an avid fan such as yourselves to go on a school night, but
I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty surprised that Farah listened to Creed. What was your first thoughts? What's a Creed song you know?
I don't know. I don't even know the names, to be quite honest.
Josh, sing a song.
I was just singing one.
I know that one.
All right. So when you first heard that song, what was going through your head?
Am I supposed to have some type of revelation or something?
I mean, I'm going to ask Josh the same question and see what he says.
I no comment. I don't have any thoughts really.
Josh, when you listen to Creed, when you hear Higher, when you heard it for the first time, how'd you feel?
How did I feel when I heard Creed for the first time? I felt like I was walking on clouds, and I was as close to God as I ever was in that moment.
See, that's what I was expecting, and I feel like that's what you were expecting from me, and I did not have the same experience.
Well, so no, the reason I say that is because, like, remember back when we were in, like, that Creed was out when we were in middle school, high school, starting, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, I remember back then, like, we had a very good, like rock, alternative,
Is it Christian rock?
I don't know. I don't think it is.
No, well, they're definitely a Christian band. Like the message behind their music is, it definitely has like religious undertones or religious overtones, however they want to talk about it. When you read deeper into the lyrics, because he's talking about struggle, perseverance. On their albums, they definitely have music that acknowledges, God. But I think that was one of the downfalls of the band in like the mid 2000s, because a lot of people started to see like the religious messages and
really, I thought
the undertones.
I thought it was because I thought the reason they fell apart was because of the like the issues. It was like
Scott Stapp was also an alcoholic, right? So it was kind of like that interesting dichotomy of them being like a religious band, but this guy also combating alcoholism in the public eye.
Yeah, I mean, but I think the crazy thing about bands like Creed and that time when their music was out, it's like I listened to a lot of those rock bands and a lot of the music that was out then, and I just felt like it was so relatable, you know, like 13-year-old me listening to like My Sacrifice talking about like his kid. I don't have kids at 13, but I related to that, you know.
Well, I also think too, and I don't know if you guys have that same mindset, because I think a lot of us, or you hear that from people in every generation saying that, oh, you know, back in my day, you know, we had the greatest generation. Mm-hmm. So whether that's people who grew up in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, but I feel like us being 90s kids, like me being born in like 88 and experiencing like the late 90s, the early 2000s as a kid, as a teenager, I feel like we had like a really great generation of not only like culture, but also for you know, technology as well, because we all remember the time before broadband internet.
Yeah,
right?
I remember when you used to
use dial-up.
You remember dial-up?
Yeah.
Dude, I remember we had a family computer.
Everyone had a family computer.
It was literally in our living room on one of those like weird like computer stands. We had the big ass monitor, and I remember like we would be on the computer, and like my dad would go like pick up the phone, and you'd hear it, and he would go to call like his uncle or his cousins and shit, and just go talk about stuff, random stuff. My dad was like, he'd just talk to people like he was a woman, and I was like, I mean, it was just weird. He would just call his family and just talk about other family members. And but I remember a few times he would pick up the phone, and I would hear him in his room, and he would hear the and he would be like, get off the fucking computer.
Yeah.
And then I would be doing like a school project, and my shit would be ruined.
But it's kind of cool to see that intersection, right? Because as kids, we can appreciate a time before the internet really took over. Mm-hmm. You know, back then you couldn't be on the phone at the same time of being on the computer, and web pages took minutes to load up, and now they take seconds in the palm of your hand, and you could be on like 10 different websites.
And we're one of the only generations that's going to experience that both.
But I think that's what makes our generation so versatile when it comes to technology. Because like there's, you know, in the legal profession, for instance, we deal with a lot of older lawyers, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have new lawyers that are, which I'm not an old lawyer. I'm not a new lawyer. I'm just like, I'm about 5 years in. But I definitely think like more younger lawyers don't understand the struggle of older lawyers. Older lawyers don't understand anything we're doing. And then, you know, we're in a real weird transition in the legal system where ever since COVID, technology has been really taking over. And even you have younger judges and older judges, and the younger judges, you know, they love the technology. But I was in a hearing earlier today where, you know, older judge, he was like, I can't even figure out to get how to get the volume right, you know? So it was like, it's definitely weird. Technology in our profession in itself is definitely just interesting. But I think we are able to adapt because we experienced dial-up internet up to satellite internet now. Like we can get, think about it. There's going to be a time where kids, you know, my kids, our kids in the future are not going to understand the concept of, oh, I couldn't go on the internet when I was in the car. You know, I remember like going on family trips and I had to fight with my brothers in the back seat to entertain myself, you know? So,
yeah. Weird. So circling back to the Creed concert, we had a great time. It definitely reminded us of being kids again. Mike and I, we've known each other for 20 plus years. Their last show of their national tour, they toured with 3 Doors Down, and 3 Doors Down was also pretty amazing.
But they did so good, they actually opened up more tour dates next year. So,
oh wow, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but it's more it's all, I think, on West Coast area stuff. So, but I mean, amazing concert. I realized quickly I don't know a lot of all of their songs, but the songs that we do know that we heard were fucking.
Well, it's a cool segue, right? Because 3 Doors Down, Canadian band, I think.
Are
right?
they Canadian?
I think they're Canadian. That's why. That's why the
Even
guy.
if they're not, don't fact check us. Let us.
Well,
use a
actually,
segue.
Mike, fact check us right now. Is 3 Doors Down Canadian?
Down. No, they're from Mississippi, bro.
Mississippi?
Yeah, they're nowhere. Dude, I was gonna say, you know why I knew they weren't Canadian?
Well, he kept on saying my friend.
That's fair. I felt like his friend at the end of the concert. I truly.
We were joking around, dude. That was hilarious.
No, but the reason I was gonna say I know they're not Canadian is because when that song, when I'm Gone comes on, dude, there's so much America running through that.
That
song.
is true. That is true.
Like
you are right. Yeah.
I personally wanted to go enlist as soon as that song was done. I was about to leave Kia Arena and go.
I'm trying
enlist,
to think.
dude.
I'm trying to think what band was Canadian. I don't know why I thought they were Canadian.
Maybe Third Eye Blind or something.
Yeah.
The Weeknd's Canadian.
Maybe. The Weeknd?
The Weeknd's Canadian.
Well,
Justin Bieber is Canadian.
Speaking of Canadian and Canada, right? There's something going on in the news. One of Justin Trudeau's primary cabinet members resigned due to the Trump tariff situation, right? So I'll let Farah spearhead this.
Chrystia Freeland. I mean, I don't know much more other than that she resigned and she'd been in his cabinet for a really long time.
I think she was like the director of finance or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it was because I did a little bit of reading on it, and it was basically because the way Canada's economy is going, and I guess the impact that the potential Trump tariffs are going to have on the economy. I think a lot of people are pissed off at Trudeau, but I think it's interesting because I'm not. So this is a fun fact. I don't know if you guys knew this. I'm actually a dual citizen.
Why wouldn't you use that as a segue?
We could have used that as a segue. I actually forgot about that.
I'm a dual citizen.
Yeah, your dad talked about that a lot when we were kids.
Oh, Canada, baby. Don't talk about my people. No, I'm just kidding. I was born here, so they can never strip me of that. But Canada represents dual citizenship. America doesn't. So, but I don't know how that works. But Canada, evidently, their financial situation is like in shambles. So when Trump threatened tariffs on them and jokingly advised that he was going to make them the next, state, I thought it was pretty interesting. But I think it's shedding a lot of light on some criticisms of Justin Trudeau and some of his policies. Canada is one of the countries that literally you can go to jail for saying things to people wrong, I believe. And I've heard horror stories. There's Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a professor, I believe, or something like that. Super outspoken. Honestly, I think he can definitely be interpreted more conservative, but I feel like he's more of a libertarian style. But I think they hate his guts in Canada. And I just don't understand why. He's advocating for things like free speech and, things that people should want, and they just won't want it.
Yeah, I mean, Canada has definitely been going through the ringer the past 3 or 4 years, especially pertaining to free speech. There was a big trucker strike there. I want to say last year or the year before, and they basically killed that entire strike, or the union strikes for truckers in Canada by basically freezing these people's bank accounts, not allowing them any access to any sort of financial institutions.
What?
That's crazy.
Killing contracts. Yeah, it was pretty insane. So it was pretty widespread, actually. I'm surprised you guys didn't read about that. But also them being our neighbors, they're a country that's also been experiencing a very, very high cost of living. The cost of living over there has also become like very, very exorbitant. So a lot of Canadian citizens, as of late, they've been very, very vocal on social media about Canada, about it almost being unlivable because it's so expensive.
But what's weird is, so I have some Canadian family members, right? And they'll always tell me like the benefits of living in Canada. Like there's healthcare benefits. There's all these benefits. And like, I'm not going to lie. I've thought about it. Like maybe, hey, utilize my dual citizenship and go and see what these healthcare benefits are. I've heard nothing but good things, and that's when I saw this situation, like I understand the costs of like taxes are high over there and so on and so forth, supposedly. But when I saw all of this play out where their economies in shambles, I'm like, I guess all those good things come at a price. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to watch that play out and how, when Trump comes in office, I don't know if you guys have looked at some of the news stuff. I mean, it's kind of like he's already there. I mean, there was a situation with Trudeau. Trudeau instantly offered to like come over and meet with him. I think it was the president of Mexico. It's a lady, I believe. And she like initially she was saying how she's gonna like be all aggressive, and then within like 3 hours of Trump saying something, she like flipped
Backed
the
down.
script. And I was like, damn, dude, it's like total different vibe than it was his first term. And I feel like people kind of respect Trump this time.
I think they have to, because he's just unpredictable. And this is this isn't a disrespect to the Biden administration, because when a president is outgoing, they're in their kind of lame duck session, and all of these world leaders, and that happened when Biden took over for Trump.
Yeah,
they're starting to, a lot of like these world leaders are starting to open communication with like the incoming administration. But I think with Trump being so vocal, very, 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 very strong-willed, and also somebody that is going to potentially implement like these tariffs and stronger immigration rules. These world leaders, I feel like they're on edge. And Trump recently, he did a press conference in Mar-a-Lago, which, we were talking about briefly before the podcast. And I was genuinely impressed with him. He was a lot more subdued than he usually is. And he answered more questions in that hour and like 15 minutes on stage than Biden did his past 4 years. And he was giving really, really great answers. He was very, very straightforward, but I feel like he's had a crazy year, right? He went from being almost being assassinated
Twice.
Twice, right? So almost being assassinated twice, being the comeback kid, winning this second term, winning this second presidential term, and then being named Time Person of the Year.
I can't with that. Don't at me.
So
I welcome Trump's presidency back, because the social media is fire, dude. It's like I saw with the Time magazine thing of the year. I remember seeing he posted it. I believe he posted it where it was like how it started, and it was his mugshot. Did he have
AI like create that? Like what is?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, he's funny, man. He is the funniest person. He's the funniest president, hands down. George Bush was pretty funny. Like
He was George Bush was also unintentionally funny.
Yes.
yeah, but he was the original comedian president, right? No one took him seriously.
Yeah.
And I just remember the video of George W. Bush dodging that shoe that was thrown at him.
Oh, yeah.
That shit was hilarious.
No, and then we also had that scare where he like choked on a hot dog or a pretzel or something.
What's another Bush one? Remember when he was like talking about, it was like, you can fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, or something. I was just like,
Fool me won't get fooled again.
Yeah, like
I'm gonna play the clip. I want to play the clip for everybody.
but Trump's hilarious, man. Trump is so funny. Now, I don't know how he's gonna do as the president the second time around. I think it's gonna be wild because he's got 4 years and he doesn't give a shit about re-election at this point. So
One interesting thing about his policy that I wanted to bring up that Josh mentioned, that like immigration, also his immigration policy is a lot stricter than I was actually speaking to a couple from Vancouver a couple of weeks ago when I went to a wedding, and they were talking about how the reason why their cost of living is so high is because of the incoming refugees that Justin Trudeau has allowed to come into the country. And so it's causing a lot of it's causing a housing crisis for them. It's causing a housing issue where there's not enough homes for the amount of people that are in the country, and there's people who don't want to have to move from like a 30-year fixed mortgage to have to like move around to a new place.
yeah, I mean,
That's a great point.
but that was one of the big points that Trump, made during his presidential run was, there's a bunch of people coming in, and I think there was like Venezuelan gangs and stuff like that they referenced. And like, let's be honest, I do believe in, logical, reasonable measures to protect the border, right?
Yeah.
Should we know who's coming into the country? Yes. Should everyone be allowed to come to the country? I don't think so. I mean, as weird as that sounds, I think I think about it in my company, the way the country is run, it's supposed to be run kind of like a company. Do I just want to pick up, how comfortable do you feel if we were to just hire anyone off the street to work in your law firm and handle your business, right? They kind of got to be qualified. And I think, we're blessed to be American citizens, and we had the opportunity to be born here. Definitely.
Which Trump's even trying to get rid of that.
Yeah. So please, Trump, let me stay. But,
It's too late for that, no?
I mean, I don't know, dude. I got bags
They can't
packed.
make that retroactive, can they?
I got bags packed. If I gotta go, I'm gonna cry in red, white, and blue. But it's what it is. But realistically, I don't think people that there's certain immigration laws that are in place. They look for felonies. They look for people with criminal backgrounds. There's certain things that you just don't want to bring into your country because they're just not going to be able to kind of mesh with our current American system. So
Yeah. Fun fact. I learned this while I was learning how to run DUIs. If you have a DUI in America, it's very, very difficult for you to cross the border into Canada.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's I've heard, I think they don't even allow you to go.
I don't think they allow you in.
Yeah. Even if it's like, I don't know if you were charged with it or.
Well, yeah, I think that's the only way that it would be on your record, I believe.
Well, I think it's even if you don't have to be found guilty of it. I think you just get charged with a DUI. I don't know. We'd have to look that up one day. So,
but I mean, to your point, there has to be some type of happy medium between Trump's total ban and then Justin Trudeau's let's let everyone in, which, like you said, there needs to be some type of balance.
Well, talking about. Let's go into one of the next things we were going to talk about, right? People from countries want to go to other countries, right?
Yeah.
And this goes into the next thing we were going to kind of talk about was some of the missing people stuff. But I recently just saw that there was an American YouTuber. I forgot his name. I think it's like Elliot something. He went to, was it Thailand?
The Philippines.
Philippines. And he literally was living there. He married someone there, and he ended up getting kidnapped. But he was actually, they pretty sure he's dead. So supposedly he was like, it was weird. He started a business there. He was like vlogging on a daily basis. And then he was in, I guess, a dangerous part of the Philippines. And evidently
he was on a small island where he started some type of grocery store or something.
Yeah. And they ended up like, supposedly some people broke into his house and like kidnapped him, but he was an American citizen. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how do you feel about, you know, potentially leaving the comfort and some of the laws and protections we do have here? How would you feel when you go to another country? You know, you would expect to have those same sort of protections, right?
I had an incredible experience living overseas.
Yeah.
Right. So I lived in Thailand for 6 months, and living over there was, I mean, it was amazing. You know, living in Southeast Asia, you know, being able to travel around Southeast Asia, being able to live over there. And I think that was one of my fears in the back of my mind was, how am I going to acclimate as an American, you know, in a foreign country? But I feel that, at least at the time, this is 2015, you know, I know global perception changes over time, but, you know, they loved Americans, you know, at that time. And I feel like they usually love Americans anywhere you go to, because Americans that are expats going into, you know, countries like Mexico, Mexico City in particular, where it has a large expat population, Thailand, Japan. I mean, you know, there are a lot of countries that have pretty substantial expat populations. When expats go into those countries, they're coming in with primarily like a job, being a digital nomad, and they're pumping so much money into the economy.
Or they're just old retired dudes.
But even them being old,
you know why they're
but
looking for a wife.
And I've ran into like those guys as well. But even then, those are guys who are retired over there, and you know, with maybe a pretty substantial nest egg, and they're pumping money into the economy as well. So at least for me personally, I had a great experience. I'm living over there. I forget what type of visa situation it is, like, cause I think they have levels of visas depending on the type of country that you're from. It did require me to make a few border runs, because after I was there for 3 months, I had to travel out of the country for a few days and then come back in order to stay another extended period of time. So, but I had a great experience.
Well, there's there's two things. Number one, have you ever heard of, I don't know anything about it, but it's like, I think it's like Passport Bros. Have you heard of stuff like that?
No.
Where like
that's been something like recent though, right?
Yeah, like I feel, but it was something that I saw a few months or years ago, where like it's now pretty common for younger guys that instead of like dating, trying to find chicks here, they'll like go to Colombia or Dominican Republic and go travel.
Or Ukraine. That's where a lot of American
Really?
older men get catfished by Ukrainian
No, but I think
women.
this is younger dudes. It's like people in their early 20s, you know? So, I mean, in retrospect, if you think about it, like I think it's a different culture nowadays, where because of social media and because of all the stuff going on, that's more like of an option. But like, I remember when I was in my early 20s and I didn't want to go date someone from another country. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. It's weird. I think people, it's not even that I didn't want to. I guess it's just not something I really thought of.
I think the Passport Bros movement has taken off in that capacity is because with the advent of personalities like Andrew Tate and a lot of like these alpha males coming to the forefront, pushing the red pill movement, countries like Colombia, Dominican Republic, I mean, any of like these third world or second world countries where like the economy is now growing, or there's enough to do as an expat in the country for it to be cheap enough to live there. They're looking for women with more conservative ideals. So I think the perception is,
they don't want the traditional American woman.
They don't want the traditional American woman.
Let me tell you what they want. When I see the videos on Instagram and you see the Spanish chicks from Colombia and they're in those tight dresses, dude, they don't want conservative shit. They want what they see on Instagram.
Or they want what they see, and then they want to tell them what to do once they start funding.
Exactly.
Funding their lifestyle. Yeah. I mean, if you've noticed, all of the situations that you mentioned is all males. So this is like moving to overseas is like a very male privilege.
Well, women are just more sneaky about what they do.
I'm talking about moving to a different country.
Honest. We are very honest. Y'all sneaky slither snakes.
Well, I've lived overseas. Granted, it was when I was like 11 years old, but I lived in Pakistan for a year, and my sister actually lives there now. She's been there for almost 3 years. Her experience as like an American living overseas, it's very different because it's determined on a number of factors. Like you said, whether it's a third world country, like a second world country, another first world country, or also like, you know, the culture of the place that you're staying in, because like the culture shock for like my nieces and nephews living in a third world country with a predominantly Islamic rule is very different. It's not going to be the same as it is here, like the freedom that they get. So, and especially for women there, because men kind of can pretty much stay the same as they do in America. They can do whatever they want. They can go wherever they want. Women have to be, not legally, but they basically have to be chaperoned by someone just to make sure, and kids just to make sure they don't get kidnapped.
That's crazy. Like, I mean, respect to, you know, their cultural beliefs. And I've got family that follow the Muslim religion as well. I grew up here in Florida. I never was really around culture, my West Indian culture, you know, at all. Grew up Christian. So it's like, and I didn't even really go to church like that. So it's like, I can never be in that type of situation. And it's not like that I just couldn't do it because I don't want to. I think because I'm I have such a diverse thought process and how I approach things, I don't think I could do it, man. I'd have a very big problem, you know, a very big problem. What? Because like I think about it with equality, right? Like I have nieces. I love my nieces, and I'll be damned if anyone tells them they can't do certain things, you know, because like as being who I am, I want them to be just as, you know, aggressive as I am. I want them to be, if my nieces could be lawyers and be the same way that I am, like that's what I would want. I would never want them to kind of feel like they can't do that or they shouldn't be able to do that. You know, it's weird.
But that's a healthy perspective to have, right? So when you talk about the passport bros, what I mean by them looking for conservative ideals is that they're looking for women that I don't want to say subjugate because that's too harsh a word, but they're looking for women who aren't going to question them.
Who's going to be more subservient.
Yeah, who's going to be just more subservient. Like they're not going to question them. They're going to take the lead because you're going into countries where women executives, you know, women in high power jobs are like very, very rare.
But that shit seems so wild to me because like, number one, I personally feel like if you have to have someone so focused on taking care of you, like, are you an imbecile? You know what I'm saying?
No, but the women who are getting into relationship with these men know exactly what they're doing.
They do.
It's not like, oh, you know, I was trapped. Help me.
Oh,
I need money.
I know.
Yeah.
Like
they're like, oh,
they're gonna wax them.
This American is coming in to take care of me.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just like, oh, so you're gonna pay for my family too, right? And then and then they might have kids from another marriage. They might actually be married and having them take care of them.
The best one is, remember 90 Day Fiance?
I was just gonna talk about that. Yeah,
bro. So I got trapped in an algorithm again. And so now I started seeing a bunch of 90 Day Fiance stuff pop up, right? And one of the 90 Day Fiance things that I saw was I guess this guy, he likes ladyboys or something like that, but he lives here in America. He's dead broke, homeless pretty much. But he went, and I saw some interview where he was just like, yeah, I'm going to find, a lady boy in, is it the Philippines?
Thailand.
One of the two. So I'm getting these countries mixed up. But so he was like,
Ladyboys are all over. So
ladyboys are all over. But so he goes, he went and found this chick and was like, oh, I want to marry you. And then goes over, meets her instantly. Like it's within like 5 days of being there. He's like, yeah, I have gonorrhea. And then from there, like he gets his cure of the gonorrhea, and they still like haven't slept together, I guess. And then he's like, oh, I guess marriage for lady boys and men are illegal there, or maybe gay marriage might not be legal there. I don't know. But he was like, oh, well, I can't marry you, so I'm going to marry your mom. He was like, yeah, and then an interview came out where he was just like, yeah, I'm going to find someone to marry over there so I can stay there because I like ladyboys. And I'm like, what in the world?
Oh my God, he found a loophole.
90 Day Fiance. Dude, that show is hilarious.
That show is
wild. And there are a lot of people that end up on that show from the Philippines and Thailand.
Yeah. Wasn't that where the guy, remember Big Ed?
Yeah. Big Ed. He's like on his third woman from the Philippines.
Colombia, Thailand. I mean, yeah. People will look for love anywhere.
Well,
and in alternate reality, I think I would love to like know what it's like to be in that sort of relationship from like just just looking at it, just to experience what it is.
No,
I just want to know like kind of like how that works. Like I guess no, I don't.
You mean a transactional relationship?
I just want to. I really wish there was a way that we can like see like the pop-up bubbles. Like watch the relationship play out and just know what these people are thinking.
Like Farah said, it's basically a transactional relationship, but it's playing out on TV.
Yeah,
you do know. It's not like neither party is really disguising their true intentions.
So it's like, well, yes, they are, because one of them, I genuinely think some of the guys and that go and seek people from other countries, they genuinely do like the other people.
Well, those are like the people that are real. Those are the men that are especially vulnerable, like the ones who fall in love with strippers. And they're like, oh yeah, she loves me. That's why I come here every day and spend money. It's the exact same thing. It's transactional.
Don't look at me, Josh. I worked in a strip club, and
he was a bouncer and a manager.
I did a lot of things, and that's it. I'm gonna leave it like that.
He had a couple crazy girlfriends. So
I'm gonna leave it like that. Let's talk about taxes.
Farah, what was the next subject that you were going to bring up?
Well, speaking of all of these other countries, a lot of other countries already have a TikTok ban. Mike, how do you feel about the TikTok ban that may be happening here in the U.S.?
May or may not.
May or may not.
Yeah.
The TikTok ban's interesting, right? Because I think social media is a great marketing tool for people, for business owners like me. I personally don't really care for TikTok. I do think TikTok is very aggressively engaging. The one thing that kind of opened my eyes about it was the content that is provided to American consumers versus some of the content provided to overseas consumers, particularly in China. I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know what it is, but supposedly the content is tailored to be more educational in China versus, more, I don't want to say dumb, but
distracting.
Yeah. Distracting.
What is that new term? Brain rot?
Yeah. It's really not like, it's like girls dancing about, having 20 boyfriends or something like that. Like I saw there's some content creators out there that they like, all you see is them talking about being in an open relationship. And it's kind of like, when you think about that, there's nothing wrong with open relationships, right? But when you think about it in the context of, family upbringing, so on and so forth, and the cultural aspect of it, and if you analyze it in a more cultural analysis, I could see where the Chinese culture, doesn't really want to promote that sort of thing, because you argue that sort of, relationship can kind of degrade and rot the family unit. Whereas in America, it's more accepted. It's more, like, people do that shit all the time. There's nothing wrong with it. But like, you would never, I guess, see that be promoted in a culture such as the Chinese culture,
Yeah. So what is the issue that the Supreme Court is bringing up in regards to TikTok?
Whether or not it's legal. I mean, whether or not the U.S. government can constitutionally, ban a company that purportedly is, or that is owned by another country per se, or has a lot of ties to another country, right?
Yeah.
And
a lot of people are saying it's like a First Amendment issue, though, because then, like, in the same way that people tried to, censor Twitter, which is now X.
So I do agree with that, but it's kind of like, the way I'm going to look at it is, put it down to its bare bones. A company is not a person, right? Number one. Number two, if it truly is a company owned by another country, and they are headquartered and domiciled in another country, they don't have American rights
and
per se, as an American company would.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll add to that, because you brought up an excellent point, is that TikTok is aggressively addicting. And that's why they call it the death scroll for a reason. When you talk about freedom of speech, like Farah brought up, I don't necessarily think it's freedom of speech. I think it's what the algorithm is feeding you. It would be different if whatever you posted was going to be organically found, and it wasn't a certain algorithm feeding you a certain type of content consistently.
Yeah.
But the company's job is to get ad revenue, and the only way to get ad revenue is to feed you aggressively engaging content. So excellent point, because that's very, very true. It is true, because it's been proven that in China, the content that they're showcasing is more educational.
Yeah.
It's more educational. It's more knowledge based. Whereas like the content that they're feeding our kids, it's it's like other kids twerking. It's like open stuff on open relationships. It's like all of like this random stuff. Yeah.
I know a lot of content creators, because I follow a lot of them, we all do on social media. A lot of them in America particularly have had the issue that the algorithm isn't based on, what people are normally viewing. It is cherry picked by TikTok, what they choose to share in the algorithm.
See, and I think no matter what country you're affiliated with, I believe in more of like a hands-off approach, right? I think the fact that there's, an algorithm and it selects certain things over certain things, or you can have, bots or have these people that get promoted over other people because they spend money. I think that in itself is a little weird. I much rather, honestly, a just plain neutral content, a platform that allows people to share whatever they want and let it get promoted on its own organically, right?
Yeah, through its popularity, not because of an agenda.
Yeah.
The best way I can think about it is, remember that the girl Bobby Althoff, she had a podcast, a really good podcast, and it popped up out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was watching something about her where it was like, when she first came out, there was something about her being a media plant or some shit, or a Hollywood plant. And I really didn't know what that was. And then I started looking at it a little bit more, and I was like, this kind of makes sense, because she's really not that engaging.
Yeah.
And nothing in particular sticks out about her. How did she get all of 1 million followers and this, that, and the other? And then I'm like, supposedly her views and stuff have gone down. So it's a little weird. And I think it was just kind of like, it's kind of like a crypto scam. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's like people being force fed to you.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's a great example, because she came out of nowhere. I didn't know who the hell she was. And then when I saw a few episodes of her podcast, I was like, why do people find this funny? And maybe it just wasn't my cup of tea. So I'm not I don't go out like hating on, people like outright, because different strokes for different folks. Right. But she came out of nowhere. You're right. And there are a lot of people like that, like, in the music industry, actors or whomever else, like they come out of nowhere and you're like, who is this person? Like, how come they're taking over the airwaves? And
I feel like that happened with a lot of YouTubers who weren't able to make it on other forms of social media, and then they were able to target whatever it is TikTok was looking for and just create their brand on there.
Well, yeah, but then you get like people that get thrown to you. Like, remember that the one dude, the NPC dude that did the
Miles
Spider-Man?
Morales, yeah,
that guy's a lunatic. Have you seen like some of the stuff that
I have? Yeah,
dude, have you heard of him?
No.
So it's this younger dude. I think is he Spanish or is he black?
He's a black kid. Yeah.
So he dresses up with the Spider-Man Miles Morales like thing, and he just does that like weird NPC like movement, and then people were paying him, and he got a lot of attention off of it for a while, and then I think it got to his head because he kind of like got promoted, and then now like if you look at some of his latest stuff, he'll be doing his little Miles Morales thing in like Central Park or somewhere in Brooklyn or something like that, or Queens, and people will like start messing with him, and he'll like lose it. He'll like curse him out and start like wanting to fight him. He's like fought a guy in the garage. I'm like, this guy's a lunatic. But it's, once again, he's trying to get into that like algorithm to stay relevant. And I think realistically, he probably wasn't really relevant, but because it promotes certain things, I think it's fucking with people's head, you know?
But that's a good word. It's a good term, relevancy. I think that with social and a lot of the personalities that are trying to break through, they're trying to do the most extreme thing possible.
Yeah.
Or, doing something completely out of left field to break through, people's algorithm and try to stay there for as long as possible because, they want to be famous. They want the popularity. So,
yeah. I mean,
first world problems.
First world problem.
Getting paid to act like an NPC.
Dude, when that a lot of people just want to be they just want to end up at a Diddy party, man.
I think if you have the end goal of ending up at a Diddy party, I mean, maybe it carried a different meaning back in the day, but
ain't no party like a Diddy party. Yo, I saw a video of LeBron James, someone absolutely just roasting him in front. Like he was like standing in the club seats or somewhere, and some guy was like, "We know you were at the Diddy parties, LeBron." And then they cut in that video where he's like, "Ain't no party like a Diddy party."
Hey, everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's just up. Yeah.
Like many things.
I'm glad I never want to be ever associated with Diddy, and I never had.
Growing up though, one of your life goals was to attend a Diddy party.
Jesus, was it? Did I say that? Said a lot of things in my life. I'm gonna have to. Well, imagine that would be funny. Like, imagine. So part of the bar process, right? You have to go through character and fitness. Now, like, say, like, put yourself into the position where, say, you were in that weird time frame where you're like, you did attend a Diddy party, and then you have to do like your character and fitness application for the bar, and you have to like weirdly disclose to them.
They don't ask they're not going to ask something as specific.
No, but
as,
I
have you
would
ever
want
been to a Diddy party. It's
I
like,
would
have
want-
you ever gotten a parking ticket?
I
Like,
think that's a good analysis of someone's character and fitness. If you've gone to a Diddy party, we've got questions, buddy.
Well, a question that I have for both of you guys, and we can end it on this, is that I read recently that he withdrew his what's the word I'm looking for? He withdrew his request for bail because it wasn't it wasn't gaining any headway, and they weren't ever going to let him out.
He got rejected like 4 times.
Yeah, so he's been rejected. Been rejected on multiple occasions for that. So based on that circumstance right now, and a lot of like these civil lawsuits that are continuing to come forward, if you were if you were the lawyer defending him,
Oh God.
right? Like, no, but if you were, right, technically, like, you know, what's one of the things that you're trying to combat right now?
In regards, I honestly,
because there's so much stuff.
Listen,
right?
Because he's stuck in there and this is going to trial, I think what I would most likely start combating is some of the negative publicity around his name. And I would really start pushing more of the positive things that he's did. Because look, like, it's weird. All of the people that are claiming these cases, probably not every single one of them, to think you raped or diddled 200 plus people, that's a lot. I mean, not many, hopefully not many, you don't rape 200 people in someone's lifetime. That's a lot of people to rape. Hopefully you never rape any people. But if you're Diddy, if I'm Diddy, like, I'm going to say, hey, maybe I raped 1 or 2, but not 20, you know, because the difference far as space. Listen, but I'm telling you, as a lawyer, like, could I possibly work a plea deal with 1 or 2 versus 200?
Well, the reason why I ask this is because I look at Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
And Bill Cosby went through the ringer with all of the negative publicity on him as well. Like, this is a guy who, of course, he wasn't throwing Diddy parties, but he was somebody that
he was throwing Quaaludes.
He was throwing Quaalude parties, right? So he was throwing Quaalude parties. But Bill Cosby, you would think that, look, there was a huge home run with a lot of, like, the allegations that were brought forth against him. And maybe it's because he's at an advanced age. I mean, look, you guys would know a lot better than I, but they eventually let him off, right?
Yeah, but I think, wasn't it because of, like, health issues and stuff like that or something?
But you know what? That's what I'm saying. So it's like something that could seem like a home run for the victims ends up not being quite the home run they initially envisioned, and Bill Cosby ends up getting off and spends the rest of his years, you know.
Oh, he got off
at home. Yeah.
Oh God.
So
why? Why?
He definitely got off.
He got off.
I think it's hard to compare the two because, you know, Bill Cosby already had, like, a very, very full career. He's very much, like, closer to the end of his life. Diddy's, like, in the middle of it. You know, he still has, like, a viable record label. Used to. I don't know about that shit anymore.
Yeah.
But, and also, he's just, first of all, he's way too rich. There is no way they are going to put that person on bond. And since we first talked about it, he is still witness tampering. He is still calling people from his cell. So damage control.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, realistically, it's one of those things where if I were his lawyer and I had to work on something, I would start working on the public perception of him, because realistically, when it goes in front of a jury, you hopefully get a jury pool of some people that say, you know, yeah, he might have raped a few people, but he did a lot of good.
That's
when he
what
wasn't raping.
That's what Mike would do.
But that's just me. I'm not a criminal lawyer. I ask for money from people for accidents. Like, that's not what I do.
I'm going to tell you what I would do. I would quit and then I'd put a lien on that file.
No, I mean, I want to stay so I can get paid.
So I'll just ask for the fees later. He's good for it.
Listen, after I'll ask him to, like, maybe just get me a record deal.
His record label is going to be in the trash.
I think
my music will be trash. Bam.
I think anything that he has his name on, they're trying to basically erase him from any sort of interaction that he's had with that company.
Would you drink Ciroc?
First of all, I don't really drink alcohol to begin with, and I definitely would not drink Ciroc.
Did he create Ciroc? I thought he was just like a Ciroc partner.
No, I think he was one of the people.
DJ Khaled. Well, did you see that the woman who named Jay-Z in the lawsuit, and that prior lawsuit, she kind of went back a little bit and amended and retracted some of the statements, saying that they weren't entirely accurate?
Yeah, I saw some of it was like her dad like she said her dad picked her up from the party and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, dude, number one, like I get what one of the reasons why he responded the way he did now, because listen, I do feel for Tony Busby, the attorney, because at the end of the day, one of the biggest things you got to do is when you're putting words on paper, you got to make sure those things are good, valid. You got to do due diligence. And honestly, if that was my client, the moment I found out my client ever like publicly walked something back, hopefully he knew about it.
Yeah.
But even if she publicly walks it back, like that's one of the cases I just wouldn't bring, because realistically, it's going to attack your credibility too. Because look, now just because he brought possibly one person that has a shitty case or that possibly lied, or maybe she just doesn't remember everything, the lawyers on the other end, that's going to be their angle. The plaintiff's lawyers especially, we're going to just literally show like this person's a liar. Therefore, and once that you are the lawyer defending a quote unquote liar, it's just going to paint all of your other clients as liars. And that's going to actually help Jay-Z.
Yeah, it opens the door.
Because every single other lawyer that tries to consider any claims anyone else brings against them, it's good. They're going to scrutinize it highly. And if you're not solid on it, like it's going to be very hard.
It's crazy to see how they spin it though, too, right? Because look, I can definitely feel for, or empathize with somebody in Jay-Z's situation, because if the allegations are completely untrue and they were unfounded to begin with, your credibility in the public eye has already been questioned. Like
the court of public opinion
the court of public opinion already deems you as guilty. But his attorneys, and I read that actually a few days ago, they've been spinning it like, oh, Jay-Z, he doesn't really know Diddy at all. Like he's not.
Okay,
that's literally what they said.
That's extra.
That's literally what his attorneys have said. They said, oh yeah, him and Diddy, they're not good friends. They don't interact. They don't talk. And you're saying all of this, and in the public eye, it's like, wait, you guys have been to hundreds of events together.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, well, just because two people are famous doesn't mean that they.
Well,
that they know
my whole
each other.
thing is, look, I do think maybe he didn't, wasn't involved in that one, but I don't
think it was him.
I do think, listen, I think it's a big stretch for someone to go out and say, yeah, a celebrity raped me when I was 13 years old, right? So do I want to say like she's an absolute liar? I don't know. Do I think there might be some issues with her credibility? Yes. Yeah. But when I I judge people by their surroundings, right? And he was a very good close acquaintance of Diddy. I mean, when you look at all the other people that were kind of around Diddy, they're weird situations, man. Cuba Gooding Jr. He's got some cases against him, and I think it's interesting, but it's being associated with Diddy. Like if Diddy truly was as bad as he was, like I don't think Jay-Z is innocent by any regard. I think there's definitely shit he's done out there.
For sure.
Whether or not we'll ever find out whether it's true. Yeah. But listen, all of us have done something, So
but you brought up something.
The difference is, I may have sped versus had a Diddy party.
You brought up something about Tony Busby though, and I wanna finish it with this, because I think as the attorney, it's your job to make sure that you did your due diligence and your research on the victim to make sure that they have a rock solid story, because you guys know about that case where those 3 college students, this happened, I think about a decade ago, where they were accused of being raped, they were accused of raping a woman or an exotic dancer that had come to a frat party. They were never able to get any evidence, like concrete evidence of this woman's allegations. The coach of the I think it was the football team or rugby team. I'll put the story on screen for everybody to look at. So the coach gets fired, the university gets docked. These 3 students, their lives get ruined. But the police, I think months later, they basically said that, hey, like there was never any evidence of this, but the court of public opinion had already placed the judgment on the people who were accused. She recently came forward and said, hey, everything I said was untrue.
Oh, dude.
Right.
See,
and that's the thing. So it's like, look, man, there are a lot of women that go through horrible experiences, and
men too,
and men as well. And the cases that are true deserve to be prosecuted with the fullest extent of the law. But I think the problem that I have sometimes is that when these victims come forward and their stories end up not being true, there is no penalty, and there is nothing that happens to them after all this is done, and they basically walk away with like a slap on the wrist.
Couldn't you bring a defamation claim for that?
Yeah, and you've ruined somebody's life.
Well, here's the other thing. You have statute of limitations and certain stuff like that. But my biggest thing is, I think that's one of the reasons why when you as a lawyer bring certain claims, you have to vet them as aggressively as possible, because realistically, like, number one, I've literally not represented people because of the way I just don't feel like they're credible. This week, I've sat down and talked to someone, and I felt like they were not a viable candidate for me. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like clients. It's kind of like it's a job interview, right? It's my job to interview the client to make sure they are an accurate, a good client. They're gonna be something that's gonna be a profitable client, right?
And a reliable narrator. Yeah,
and the biggest thing I can't stand is when I just can't trust someone. So if I can't trust you from the beginning, and I've learned over time the red flags to pick up on. I have learned I've burnt a lot of clients have burnt me, and I'm going to be pursuing claims against them as well. But the biggest thing for me is, if you lie, and you truly can lie to, number one, an attorney that scrutinizes the shit out of you, and you pass their muster, and then down the road it comes out that you're just a goddamn liar, like your life should be ruined just as much as those people. And I mean, I wish there was a way that you can just publicly humiliate them and just give the same amount of of shit to them that they caused people harm.
Yeah, because you've ruined these people's lives for over a decade.
It's unfortunate, but and it goes both ways. Someone's life is ruined if you decide to tell the truth. Someone's life was ruined, if you decide to, be untruthful. But I think one of the things that would be a really good way for us to find out the truth is if they name Celebrity C in that lawsuit, and let's call them up as a witness.
To be determined.
We will see.
We'll see. But that was a great episode, guys. We got a lot more to cover. We have a very special guest coming, for our next episode. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to all of our new listeners, across the globe. We really, really appreciate the support. If you like what you see, like, subscribe. And if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments below.
Check us out on Apple Podcasts.
We're on Apple,
Spotify,
YouTube
YouTube Podcasts. So yeah, check us out.
All of the streaming platforms. And until next time.